Hey, welcome to another episode of the Golf Podcast. Believe it or not, Mike, we're up to episode 70 already.
Wow. Time flies, Frank.
Well, you know what? We could talk about golf all day. So,
Yeah, exactly.
so last week we had David Ledbetter on the show. We've gotten a tremendous reception of that. We can't thank everybody enough for all the comments, for all the reaching out to us on email and letting us know that they enjoyed the show on Twitter. That's been great. We're going to be working. Mike and I are going to be working over the next couple of weeks to bring you even more guests, like really spanning the range of all different types of guys where they are in the game. We're working on getting some PGA Tour players on the show. We're working on getting some people who are some golf bloggers who are just working on their game. So we want to give you as many perspectives as we can, and I think that's the way we learn. Learn from different golfers, and that's going to be part of what we talk about today. Because today we're going to talk about joining a golf league. We're going to cover all the ins and outs about what the benefits are, pros, cons, where to find a golf league, and what you can really get out of it and how it can help your game. So we're going to talk about all that. But yeah, the reception's been great to David's interview. A lot of interest for his new book. We've actually sent out quite a few of them. Thank David again for donating a bunch of books to the show. So we've been sending them out. Really enjoyed the comments everyone's been leaving, the reasons why they think it might help their game. And I think it is like David said in the interview, and you can listen to that if you go back to last week's episode 69. But if you missed it for any reason, but like you said, it's different. It's a little bit revolutionary, maybe a little bit controversial, but on the same token, there's a lot of sound fundamentals there. So I think it can really help people of all levels. So Mike, how's everything on your end? Did you get a chance to check out the book at all?
Yeah, I did. And, I love stuff like this from all the great coaches. You'll see things from like Butch Harmon and Hank Haney, and, he's got his own commercial out, about his program. And, it's great to see what these different coaches will offer. And, David was great. Loved having him on the show. And take it one step further. You mentioned earlier that we're going to bring on some guys, maybe guys on tour. And
Yep.
Frank, I always say this, that my best lessons are from watching the pros, not so much doing it myself. Of course, I go out and try to fine tune stuff, but taking the stuff I saw when you and I were at the Barclays, just standing on the range with these guys, just watching how like robots they were, and just watching how they do things. Remember those guys on the putting green? They were draining, Jason Day was draining putts from like 25 feet.
Yeah.
So being there and viewing this and hearing from these like major coaches like David, it goes a long way. I think it's in my book. I think it goes further than going out there and practicing. I love to read up on it and watch it.
Well, look, you're talking about guys who are operating at the highest possible level of the game, and just watching them, even if you pick up anything from it, it's something that can obviously help. So, and what I like too is really, like you said, kind of learning from all different people.
Right.
We talked about the different coaches having different strategies, different players approaching the game differently. I think the real way to learn this game is to kind of mesh all that together. And that's what we try to do with the podcast, is just try to get all different angles. We get different coaches on the show, and you kind of like can take that information and use it however you see fit to kind of get into your game, because there's no reason, like we've said before, you don't have to shoehorn your game into any one person's method or any one person's, strategy or whatever it may be. Pick what's right for you. But you can also learn from, just even if it's not pros, just witnessing other people playing. There's always something somebody else might know that you can kind of learn and pick up from, which is why I want to talk about it. I'm excited about this topic, Mike. We actually had an article back earlier in the month about this on Golficity, about joining a golf league, and I've been excited to talk about it on the podcast since, because there's a lot of benefits. It's not only that it's fun and a little, that friendly competition. You could maybe networking, meet some new people, but there's a lot of benefits that you can have to your game too. And we'll talk about that in a second, but a lot of that comes from things we've talked about before, simulating that competition, so that you can kind of get used to it, and you don't choke as much when you're faced with like that really important putt or something like that.
Right.
Now, Mike, I think we talked about this before, but have you played in a league before? I think you said you were toying around with joining one, but the timing didn't work out.
Yeah, I tested one out by going to one of the weekday 9-hole matches, and you're right, it didn't work. It didn't fit in my schedule, but I there's something about competitive play that I absolutely love.
Right.
And if I could just find a way to squeeze it into my schedule, who knows? Maybe down the road, maybe when I'm a little bit older and things kind of slow down, I can get out there and play in a Sunday morning league or like a Tuesday night league. But I don't know. I love the pressure. I love where things count. I mean, golf could be a lonely sport.
Right.
We're out there sometimes by ourselves, just trying to put in a quick nine before work or something. And I know you're there. You're all business on the course, but it's nice to have someone to talk to, maybe someone to kind of hang out with afterwards. And again, the competitive part, like you said, that putt means something now.
Yeah.
That makes it more fun.
Right. And you know what? Look, it truly is. Golf is a social game. I mean, it's structured that way, that in a way that I should say that it can be very social because you got a lot of time in between shots. You can kind of talk to people, things like that. And one thing that I want to stress throughout this entire episode here is that when we say competition, I mean it in the best possible light. Of course, there's always could be somebody who takes it a little bit too seriously in that bad kind of way, but I don't want to dissuade anyone from I don't want anyone to get too nervous and not join a league because they're thinking it's their game isn't up to snuff or something like that, where they're going to get out there and they're going to look silly or whatever. Because anyone who's played in a golf league knows, for the most part, you got a whole range of handicaps. I mean, there's some guys who are 25 handicappers out there playing, and a lot of it. I mean, when you say competition, you got to stress the friendly part of it. It's a lot of friendly competition, and there's a lot you could be learned from that. Sure. Every once in a while, if you're playing against somebody, they may correct you on a rules thing. You may even get hit with the penalty for strokes, but that's also how we learn. And I did this a lot. I haven't had a chance yet to play in a league, and I'll get into that in a second. But what I did, the closest thing to that was when I played competitive golf in high school. Very similar type of thing, in that you're out there. It's not that serious yet. It's kind of a friendly competition, and there is sometimes when it can get a little bit tense. But for the most part, even your opponents. I mean, that's what we love about golf in general. The etiquette side of it. Even your opponents can be helpful. They'll tell you where there's a reason they need to take a stroke on something, whatever. And I like the fact that you could sometimes, if you're unsure, stop and ask for clarification. Like, let's say there's a twig near your ball or something. You could say, "Hey, can I move this?" And they'll let you know. And that's a way you can learn too, is learn from other people. Because maybe somebody's been out there longer than you or whatever it may be. So there's a lot of benefits to it. I think the first thing then, that kind of lends itself to that is then where do you find a golf league? If you haven't done it before, maybe you may be new to the area, you may be new to golf, whatever it may be, or you just may be new to leagues in general. The first step is finding a decent golf league. And the best way you can do that really is just to simply start calling around to the local courses. Call the pro shop. Find a couple local courses, call the pro shop, ask them, do they run a league, and then get the specifics. Okay. The specifics being a couple things you definitely want to ask. First, what is the league schedule? Because you really got to make sure it can fit into your schedule. And that's been a hard thing for me, Mike. I find that a lot of leagues will start at like 3:00 in the afternoon. So it doesn't always work well if you have a busy work schedule like what I have or whatever it may be. But there are other ones at different times. But you really got to ask, because if you're going to miss too many, it's okay. They have substitutes and things like that you can work in if you miss a round here or there. But if you miss too many, it could create a problem, and you don't want that. So first thing is you got to be realistic. What's the schedule? See what it is and see if you can work into it. Another important question to ask, and you can ask the pro at any pro shop about this, and they should know. If not, there might be a league administrator that you can ask to speak with. But ask what the handicap range is in the league. Most golf leagues compete on a net basis, so the competition can be fair for everybody involved. So that means that they're factoring in the handicaps. But you probably won't enjoy playing with golfers who are either dramatically better or dramatically worse than you. Like I said, there's things you can learn, and absolutely maybe. But if it's a real disparity there, it's tough. So you want to get an idea what the handicap range is, and you want to make sure it falls somewhere in where you're comfortable. And you can even ask, tell them, this is my handicap. Would I be comfortable in this league? Do you foresee any issues with that? But that's as a brief side note. That's where it's important to have your handicap. Mike, I'm working on right now just getting mine established as far as like a true USGA handicap. I know there's a lot of websites that'll do it for free. Less and less of them are a true USGA handicap, though. I think they're starting to protect the formula or whatever it is. So I've been entering them in actually in the pro shop in order to get a true handicap, because even if there's a league that I may sub in a little bit, I'm going to probably get involved in it next season because I'm in the process of relocating. But you have to have that. I mean, that's going to be really important. So that's one thing I would definitely say. But you get an idea of what that handicap range is. And the last thing is ask what the cost is. Traditionally, you're going to find that the cost is not much more than regular greens fees. Sometimes there's a little bit of an administrative fee in there that they'll use just to run the league, and sometimes some prizes. I've seen some before where they have maybe a dinner at the end of the season. They've got some trophies, whatever. Again, all contributes to that fun part of it, but there may be a little bit of a cost. So you got to be realistic about that too. So those are the areas where you'd want to start. Like I said, call around. Mike, I personally haven't found any decent resources online. I tried just a little bit, as from a research standpoint, just typing in Google, like finding a golf league. And I didn't find much in the way of tools or anything to help you there. I think you really got to hit the pavement, so to speak, and just make a couple phone calls.
Yeah, unfortunately, you got to check around, like you said, in the local area. But, regarding what you said about handicaps, I wanted to throw this out here because what are the good sites? I mean, what are some of the good sites that you're using out there, really? I mean, I'm trying to find a good site to establish a handicap. I've just been on Golf Logics. I just joined there and I just plug it in and I'm able to do some stats in there too, which is cool. Not sure if Nike 360 has a handicap. Does it?
No, actually, I was really disappointed with that. I was just checking into it the other day and it shows, like, it keeps a lot of like stats as far as average score, greens regulation, all that. Because I use that regularly and was disappointed. It doesn't do any type of handicapping. Even their own index, it doesn't do. But I was about to say the same thing. I used to use a couple different websites, but I find the apps are easier. I know Shotly and some of the other ones, they'll do it. The other thing that I've just been doing, honestly, is entering the scores into the Nike app. And then it records them all, and then I can just at one time sit down and just plug them all into the computer for like a true USGA handicap or whatever it may be. But if you don't have one, it is a good thing to do. And the other thing I can tell you right now is my biggest piece of advice: just be truthful and be honest with yourself when you're entering your handicap. I've seen it before where both ends of the spectrum, guys will enter a bunch of their lowest scores and leave out their high ones because they want to be able to kind of say that they have that low handicap. But if you do that, you're really working against yourself because you go out there to play. And if another guy has a true handicap and you're equally matched and you're giving him strokes, trust me, it's going to be a frustrating day. The other side of it, there's always the sandbaggers, so to speak.
Right.
Enter just the high scores. But again, what does this all come down to? What do I keep saying? It's friendly competition. And honestly, maybe after one round, no one's going to figure it out, but you're playing in a league regularly and, you're playing with a 20 handicap and you're going out there and shooting like high 70s and people are like, why am I giving this guy strokes?
Right.
The friendliness of that is going to run out pretty quickly. So do yourself a favor. And also it really doesn't benefit yourself at all to have a handicap that doesn't accurately reflect your game, because if you have the right handicap, you know where you are, you know where you can improve, you know if things are going in the wrong direction or the right direction. So that's for sure is one thing you want to do.
Frank, let me just ask you one question. Here's a question I don't know the answer to, so I'm hoping you do. It's more of a rules thing, but let's say, like you play the same course all the time. It's your home course, and you play, let's say, from the whites every single time. And let's say you go out there and you shoot 3 85s in a row, and you enter them into your handicap system. And then you go out there and you say, you know what, I'm going to play the blues for the next couple days, and you go out there and you shoot 2 85s from the blues. Does your handicap go down?
Yeah, you're saying you just got the same score, but you shot him from the blues?
Yeah, is it that much of a dramatic? It is. Okay.
It wouldn't be dramatic, but it's going to be factored
It's enough
in.
to lower it. Mhm.
Yes, because anywhere you play, doesn't matter what you do. When you enter your handicap, it's going to ask for, or most of the computer systems now already have it, but it's going to have the course slope rating, and it's going to have all those factors.
So that'll all play into it and change it. Sure.
Exactly, because the whites versus the blues are going to have different ratings. So it's a simple formula. It really doesn't care where you play from. It's going to factor that all in. Easier scores at easier slope is going to be different than harder at a harder one, so to speak. But
Gotcha.
Regardless, even if you're ever considering playing in a league one day, I would say just start getting that handicap established, because it does take, I think, 5 rounds in the system in order to get a true handicap. So you want to just start getting them in there, because you never know. You may be joining a league at some point and you want to be able to have that. Or maybe your buddy's in a league and he calls you and he says, I can't play today. Well, can you sub for me? And, you have something ready to go.
Yeah, I mean, that's a good point. And I guess the big thing now is let's talk cost, because I know this can range, depending on what's at stake. Let's talk cost.
Yeah, well, with like I said, with cost, it really shouldn't be much more beyond the regular greens fees. In fact, a
Yeah.
lot of leagues might be less than your normal thing because most of them play that twilight during the week, time. So your greens fees might be less than if you're a weekend guy.
Okay, so I know you did mention that, but I wanted to try to get an understanding if it could be because a lot of people think leagues they immediately say, "Oh, I don't have like the $300 or $400 to do that." But I mean, I've never played in a league, so I don't really know what the costs are. Is it that much, or is it just straight up like you said, greens fees plus administration fee?
Basically, I mean, figure. There's one thing that's going to be a little bit different is if you are a member somewhere, it might be
That's true.
built into your membership. I can't say
Right.
it for sure. Otherwise, I would say factor at a bare minimum, factor in that you're going to have to pay the greens fees for each of those rounds. So if you commit to a league, that's another thing you can ask how often they play and how long, because some of them will split the season in halves or quarters.
Okay.
So they may say, well, it's 10 weeks, once a week. You got to pay the greens fees plus
Gotcha.
five extra
Gotcha.
bucks or something that goes into the kitty or whatever it may be. But
Right.
they will know that up front. They'll be able to explain that to you so you have it. But like I said, some
But
guys
it's
see
reasonable.
it's definitely reasonable.
Mhm.
And some guys see a cost savings because first of all, it's most leagues. Most leagues, because their after work leagues are 9-hole leagues.
And they're
So-
twilight.
Right. Cut your greens fees in half if it's a 9-hole.
Mm-hmm.
And yeah, they're usually twilight. I see most leagues go off around 3 o'clock, 4 o'clock in the
yeah.
afternoon, because they don't want to compete with the busiest times of the course, which is usually the weekend mornings.
Right.
So it might not be that bad. I mean, I would say before you rule it out as being too expensive, ask. That's the biggest thing you could do. Okay, so let's talk quickly about what to expect when you join a league. First thing is you might find yourself a little bit nervous about your first round. And what I could say is that's normal, but don't be. Generally speaking, golfers tend to be very friendly people. And you can expect that the league members you're joining would be happy to have you included because in order for a league to work, you need people, involved in it. So usually what you'll find is that they're very welcoming. And it really should only take a few rounds before you feel comfortable. And you may find yourself with a whole new set of, buddies that you can play with. So even extending beyond the league, weekends or whatever. And it's also a great way, if you're new to an area, it's a great way to just kind of make some new friends because you're out there for 2 hours with somebody, like I said, with the friendly competition or paired up with somebody as your partner. It's a great way to kind of force yourself into a new social circle, so to speak. Now, one thing I could say is that the format often does tend to vary. So I actually should have thrown this in the last category. Another thing you can ask about is what format they play in. Some will be stroke play, some will be match play. But I've even seen some that mix it up from week to week to make it more, kind of exciting, so to speak. But again, don't worry. The main thing you could do, ask ahead of time, ask in the clubhouse, ask in the pro shop. And if you're not sure how the format works, ask somebody. We have a link in the article where we covered just about every possible golf format, even to some of the crazy ones you're rarely, if ever, going to see. But we have that resource and I'll put that in the show notes. So you get to that by going to golficity.com/episode 70. But the biggest thing here, let's talk about the most important thing, the benefits for your golf game. Again, there's all those social gains we talked about. Even if another one would be for business networking, right, Mike? I mean, that's got to be a great thing. You meet some new possible clients whatever type of business you're in, right?
Yeah, absolutely. It's a great way to meet people.
Yeah. But also as far as your game goes, first things first is that just that commitment to playing more often. I mean, simple common sense, shouldn't have to dive too deep into this. That's going to help your game. We talk about it all the time, playing more, whatever. And this is something that it's kind of committing yourself to playing more. Even if you get yourself on that schedule where it's just once a week, 9 holes, I can almost guarantee by the end of the season, you're going to have improved. The other side of it is what we started talking about at the top of the show is watching others play. It doesn't always have to be pros. Like Mike said, you can pick up a lot from watching the pros on tour, watching them on TV, because they're playing at the highest possible level, but you never know. You could pick up a little tip here and there. I remember this exactly. In friendly competition, that's where I first was exposed to the idea of course management. I remember when I was playing a round back in high school, and I was maybe right in the dead middle of the fairway, maybe 60 yards out, right? It was just fairway to green. There was nothing to worry about, nothing there, right? And I try to hit this like perfect 60-degree wedge and like land it down on the pin. And that's a tough shot, and the guy tells me right after I hit it, and he's like, listen, just a tip for moving forward. He goes, you got to play course management. He goes, there's so many ways that can go wrong. You'd be so much better off with just a slower, like half pitching wedge or something like that, where it's a little bit more of like where you can get to the green and let it roll up. And it's just something with that sunk in with my game. And I do that more now. And it just, there's all these different ways that you can kind of learn from somebody. Even somebody may be a higher handicapper than you, but maybe he's a killer chipper,
Mm-hmm.
and you just say like, I was playing with this guy 9 holes, just watching him chip, and just, I picked up this technique from him or whatever it may be. But there's so much you can learn from being out there week after week. And the nice part about a league is that you're going to be shuffled and be playing with different people each week. So you're exposed to all different aspects of people's game. And so there's a lot of stuff there. And the last thing, something we touched upon earlier, is that competitive pressure. So, even in a very, very casual league, you still want to be playing your best. So feeling a little bit nervous, that competitive pressure, it's really a way to engage your mind and enhance your focus. Focus, like anything else, takes practice, and over time, what you'll find is that just by that constant exposure, like just each week you're exposed to a little bit of competition, you're going to start to realize that you become much more adept at playing under pressure. And you can kind of watch the yips, so to speak, disappear, because, if you're not used to it at all, and it's the first time you're hitting a pressure putt, you feel it. But then you look at look at it again, take it to the highest level, to the PGA Tour. These guys have like a million eyeballs on them, and it's like, it's nothing, because they've been playing competitively for like 20 years. Since they were kids. And it's one of those things, it's just exposure to it. You will get, a feeling of more comfort with it as you do it more and more. Think about it. It would be like your job, The chances are, if you've been doing the same job for a long time, when you first started out, maybe you were a little bit nervous about making a mistake or whatever, and you kind of feel that pressure. But now you go in there every day and just, bang it out, and you're good to go, because you've become so used to it. You become accustomed to it. So the same thing can happen with your game. So Mike, do you agree with me there? Because I know we started talking about that earlier.
The funny thing about pressure, and I was just talking about this with the guys in my foursome at that scramble outing I was at last week. We went into that event feeling so confident because we were all kind of bragging to each other about, hey, I'm playing great. I shot this last week. So we're like, yeah, we're going to win. We're going to get first prize. We didn't make a birdie all day in a best ball scramble because we had that extra layer of pressure. It was a competitive feeling. And, chipping off the green, 10 balls, I'm putting 7 of them 10 feet every time.
Yeah.
I was putting them over the green. I was chunking them. I had that little bit, like you said, the yips.
Yep.
And the other guys were feeling it too. Everybody was feeling it because there was that touch of added pressure. And, I guess, like you said, if you play it a lot and through the league, you can overcome that. So,
well, think about it. Put yourself in that position. Let's say you played that, like a competitive scramble like that every week for the whole summer. By September, you'd be like, it's a walk in the park.
Absolutely. Our team would shoot like a 54.
Right. Because you become so used to it. You become adept at it. So that's really the way to do it. But you have to be exposed to it. There's only so much pressure you can simulate for yourself. We've talked about this so many times, about the importance of it out on the range, of simulating pressure by doing those games, or out on the putting green where you have to make 5 in a row. So on the 5th one, you kind of can feel those jitters, so you can kind of get used to the yips, so to speak, and get through them. But there's only so much you can do with that. And where you can start to really feel it is when you're out there, your score matters. You're competing directly against the guy next to you. That's when you're going to start to feel it. And you're going to be, the first couple times, I'm telling you, you're going to get those yips, but watch them disappear as you keep doing it. So that's the important part. And that's why you commit to a bunch of weeks in the league. So that's important. So remember, joining a golf league, it's really something that every golfer should consider. Don't be afraid to do it because you have a high handicap. Like I said, just make those calls. You'll find a place that'll take, that handicap range. I know it for a fact because, like I said, I've seen guys playing 25 handicaps. Sure, they're not going to want to have you hold up a group if the entire league is really good. Yeah, they're not going to want it, but they'll let you know that ahead of time, and they will help pair you up where you need to be. But no matter where you live, you should have no trouble finding a local golf league. Pretty much, anywhere there's courses, there's some sort of league being run, at least during the prime time of the season. We've even seen the Mike at the simulator.
Right. Yeah. I was just talking to a buddy today who pays $25 a week during the winter for a winter league. Loves it.
And look at that. There's a guy we talked about costs. He's saving money because usually those simulators cost us much more than that to go for a session.
Right. He gets 2.5 hours for $25. Think about that.
Come on. I mean, what do we pay? $45 an hour?
Yeah.
So there you go. I mean, and that's where the benefit comes in, that usually if you get that many guys, and especially in something like a simulator, they work out a deal with the arena or whatever, and then they're able to do it. So the main thing, like I said, shop around, call around, pick up the phone, call the different pro shops, and they'll be happy to tell you what the options are. Start early if you want to play. Like I said, usually they'll do this so that you don't miss the whole season. They will break the season up into either halves or quarters so that, if you call them in May, they're not like, well, you missed the whole year. Sometimes they'll be like, well, we're kicking it up again in July, or whatever it may be. But my advice would be either way, start early, start calling around, I'm talking about an area, the Northeast, where it's warmer. Usually the courses open around April. I would start calling around, March, and start to get an idea what the different options are. But either way, find your league, get started. And if if you're already playing in a golf league, I'd love to hear your take on this. Leave us a comment. Go to golficity.com/episode 70. Leave us a comment on the show notes there. Let us know, if you're in a league. I'd also like to hear from you if you're not, if you're just thinking about it. Let us know what your hesitation is or whatever it may be, and we'll get a discussion going there. Mike, do you have anything else before we wrap this up?
One final point. You may have touched on this, but maybe not. If you can't find one, try to start one yourself. I know many people who've done that, and they were very successful at it. All you got to do is call the pro shop and say, listen, I'm thinking about doing it. I'm going to be the brave soul who's going to put it together. And if that's the person you are and you can make it work, then try that.
That's a great point because the courses love it because it brings them business during what is usually a slow time. The afternoons and whatever it may be. Usually that's the only barrier, is this finding somebody who's open to running, doing the administration, doing the pairings and things like that. And yeah, like Mike said, if that's something you're into, there's always people looking to do that. And usually you can get a little bit of a savings. If you're the person running it, you sometimes get a savings on your administrative fees or something like that. So give that a try. Okay, so that's everything we have this week. Now, like I said, everything I talked about here, we're going to have in the show notes, golficity.com/episode 70. We've been hearing from people, all over the country, all over the world, really, with some really great feedback about the show. The best way to get a hold of us, email us at podcast@golficity.com. That email actually comes directly both to Mike and myself. We both see it. We both respond. So we love hearing from you guys. We've had a lot of great suggestions for future episodes, which we're working on. We've had a couple people who have suggested it's a great idea, great topic, which is just some fundamentals for people just getting started with the game, like where to start, because there's a lot of guys, that get excited. They're like, I really want to take up golf, but I have no idea where to start. So we're actually going to be working on putting together like a multi-part series about that, about how to get started, all the most important things that you can do to get your game going. And trust me, even if you're not a beginner, there'll be stuff in there that you can still learn from it and pick up some tips. So we've got that coming and a lot more stuff, but a lot of this comes off your suggestions. Like Mike and I said, we could talk about golf all day. So we've got a lot of topics coming, but we can certainly kind of prioritize those based on what you guys want to hear. So email us at podcast@golficity.com. You can also leave us a comment, whether it be, on the show notes, on the YouTube channel, because like I said, we've started to put the show on YouTube there too. So a lot of ways you can get a hold of us. Either way, let us know and we'll be happy to get those topics worked in. Mike, you got anything else? I know you have, you're playing a really cool round. What's it, this weekend?
This weekend, I will report back next show about my round over at Trump Ferry Point on the Hudson River over in the Bronx there. I think it's fairly new, and it's kind of like Liberty National or Bayonne Golf Club. If any of you are in this area, you'll know what I'm talking about. But I'll report back. It looks like a really, really cool round. It
looks amazing from the pictures you sent me, and I thought the same thing right away. Like Liberty National, like just that same type of this pristine, perfect layout. But yeah, I'm looking forward to hearing how that went.
Yeah, absolutely.
All right, so we'll be back again next week. Mike can tell us how he did. Hopefully it'll be bounced back from Bethpage or whatever.
Yes, exactly.
So, all right. So like I said, best way to get us, podcast@golficity.com. We appreciate everybody tuning in. And we'll be back again next week with more. We'll see you then.